Chronicles, where we dive deep into the captivating worlds of anime, dissecting stories, unraveling characters, and sharing our passion for all things animated. Welcome to the final part of our 8-part review series on the anime, The Eminence in Shadow. In this concluding episode, we dive into the epic finale as our protagonist's true power is finally revealed. Join us as we reflect on the journey, highlight our favorite moments, and discuss the lasting impressions of this incredible anime. As a result, a bounty was placed on Rose's head, and she knew she needed to solve the problem differently. Then she remembered that Lord Percy said she should turn herself in before the Bushin Festival was over. Otherwise, he would make her father cause a war. Rose wanted to protect her father, but didn't know how to stop Percy. She had wished to marry Sheed, but unfortunately, she was possessed and knew that her wish could not come true. Suddenly, the curse activated on her, and she knew she barely had time to live. She thought that the cult of Diablos would win and she couldn't do anything. At the last moment, she'd heard Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, so she followed the sound of the piano's melody and spotted Shadow. She was surprised to see Shadow sitting in front of her, playing wonderful music. Additionally, she was surprised that Shadow was a talented musician who resembled a god. Suddenly, Shadow asked what she hoped to accomplish, and she replied that she wanted to protect everyone. Shadow offered to give her power, and she learned that she could use it to change the future. As a result, she was cured of her curse and gained new power that gave her the ability to save her kingdom. After Shadow disappeared, assassins from the cult appeared and attacked Rose. Rose decided to join Shadow Garden and use her newly gained power to defeat them. In the meantime, Alexia sensed an enormous burst of magical power. Suddenly, Rose appeared and said that she had obtained power. She didn't want to tell Alexia about her plan because she didn't want to endanger her life. Alexia replied that they had made a promise to each other, but Rose just said sorry. Then she wanted to leave, but Alexia attacked Rose because she was disappointed in her friend for being treated like a spectator. The two girls fought against each other and Rose easily defeated her. Rose showed Alexia the new power she had obtained from Master Shadow and unleashed a powerful shockwave. A short time later, Alexia was defeated and Beta said she wouldn't stop Rose. She wished Rose good luck on her mission and wondered what her Master Shadow was planning. Following this, we see Sheed on his way home. He was shocked to see his sister, CLA. A few moments later, CLA told him that while she was waiting for him in front of his dorm, she had been beating him into a bloody pulp in her mind. CLA said that he promised her they would go back home together during the summer holidays. Sheed said he didn't remember the promise, and CLA gave him one last chance. He was forced to watch her fight at the Bushin Festival and promised to go see her fight the next morning. Alexia learned that Beta would be spending a while abroad doing research. She looked around the room and saw a letter with information about the Oriana Kingdom. She knew Beta didn't like her and was grateful that she had helped her in the end. We then see Sheed, who was led to his seat in the VIP lounge. He met Iris in the VIP lounge and was surprised that she knew her big sister. Then he thought he was in the wrong seat, but Iris stopped him and was happy to meet a friend of her little sister. After this, Iris apologized for all the trouble she caused during the St. and Griffey incident. Iris hoped they could continue to be friends, and she told Iris that their relationship was more like a master with a dog. Iris said that she had her eye on Inaros because she was able to easily defeat all opponents in her fights. Iris said that despite her strength, she didn't plan on losing, and she'd asked if any other figures were worth watching. Suddenly, Iris said that there was one more person, Beatrix, who was not taking part in the tournament. She was surprised that Beatrix was famous and left the room because he had to change for his fight. After this, he sensed that someone strong was nearby, and Beatrix appeared behind him. She told him that he hadn't seen an elf before and learned that Beatrix also liked cheeseburgers. Meanwhile, Lord Percy showed up in the VIP lounge and tried to seduce Iris with his sugar daddy charm. Iris was surprised that the king did not accompany him and told her lies. He also asked if her father, King Klaus, would watch the tournament. Then they discovered Inaros and both planned to recruit strong black knights for their kingdoms. Percy asked what Iris thought of Jimmy, and she thought Jimmy looked weak, but his eyes said otherwise. Lord Percy thought she was just kidding and couldn't imagine that a weak guy like Jimmy could defeat the talented Inaros. Then the fight between Jimmy and Inaros was announced, and Percy was sure that Inaros would win. Meanwhile, Inaros wondered if she would manage to find out the secret of Jimmy's technique. She knew Jimmy hadn't shown his full strength yet, but she could see he was moving like a nudie. So, she started her attack against Jimmy and thought she could win against him with her sword skills. Jimmy dodged her attack and said she fell for his trap. At that moment, he opened the 8 inner gates and managed to smack an arrows into the air. She knew her opponent was very dangerous and had no other option than to wait for a counterattack. Then, Anaros waited, and she already suspected her plan to wait for his attack. She stopped the fight, and Anaros, one of the favorites of the tournament, was defeated by Jimmy. Meanwhile, Iris and Percy were surprised that no one had ever heard of Jimmy before. They were impressed, but Iris believed she would defeat him in their fight. Iris went to prepare for her matches, and Percy left the VIP lounge. He suspected that Jimmy was a citizen of the underworld and feared that he was connected to Shadow Garden. Meanwhile, Anaros congratulated Jimmy on his victory and was happy to have met him at the Bushin Festival. Then Jimmy was asked about his true identity because it was suspected that he must be a famous warrior. But Jimmy went off and said that his nickname was Johnny Sins. Later, one of Iris's opponents was defeated, and everyone in the audience celebrated her victory. Beatrix watched her fight, and Iris immediately ran after her. The reason for this was that Iris was a big fan of hers, and Beatrix offered her a cheeseburger. However, Beatrix told her that cheeseburgers were her favorite meals to build muscles. In the evening, we see Sheed, and his plan was to defeat Iris. He had many stupid ideas and was excited for the fight the next day. Then he learned that CLA was waiting for him because she planned to punish him for not watching her fight. Then we see Rose, who planned to use her newly gained power to save her kingdom. She was ready for the next day and hoped everything would work out. In the meantime, Iris was practicing her sword skills and remembered when she defeated a commander with one blow as a child. Since then, she had won many battles and was considered a genius of the Midgar Kingdom. Iris was admired by many people but was constantly treated differently because she was the princess of Midgar. Iris was not respected by her father, and he did not allow her to have any say in the security of the kingdom. As a result, Iris planned to win the Bushin Festival to prove that she had enough power to protect the kingdom. The following day, she was enjoying the free snacks in the VIP lounge when Iris appeared and told him that she didn't like coffee because of its bitter flavor. She'd advised her to mix coffee with milk and sugar, and she was surprised that it worked. Meanwhile, Beatrix showed up in the VIP room, and Iris invited her in. They were surprised, and she admired Beatrix because she held the title of War Goddess. Later, Beatrix was asked if a person had caught her attention, and she said that she could definitely become a powerful Black Knight. We then see Percy poisoning the King of Oriana. He didn't intend to kill him immediately because Percy knew Rose would fall for his bait. Percy planned to exploit Rose because she was prime material for the cult's experimentation. He also planned to kill the King of Midgar to incite a war. Suddenly, Beatrix remarked that Percy stank, and he ordered guards to throw her out of the room. Iris cleared up the misunderstanding, and Percy was shocked to meet the woman who might have awakened the hero's blood. However, Percy was worried that his plan might be thwarted because he had no chance against the goddess of war, but he was sure that Rose would show up and plan to use the moment to murder the King of Midgar. Meanwhile, Claire was fighting, and Percy didn't see her as a threat. Iris was on her way to her fight against Jimmy and couldn't afford to lose. When Iris stood in front of Jimmy, she felt that he was a very strong fighter who didn't win by luck. She looked at him and planned to attack immediately. After the fight began, she felt her head being cut off and lost consciousness. CLA knew that she hadn't seen her fight and planned to punish her little brother. Later, Iris dodged an attack and realized she was still alive. Confused by the attack and not understanding what had just happened, Iris regained her senses and found one of her legs had been cut off by Jimmy's powerful illusion spell. Meanwhile, Rose had almost reached the VIP seats but discovered many dead cult members. She already suspected that Shadow Garden was behind it and was instructed to fulfill her mission. Iris was still fighting Jimmy and couldn't escape his illusions. She understood that her opponent was the most powerful person in the world. Unfortunately, Iris couldn't afford to lose and immediately unleashed all of her power. She rushed toward Jimmy but was confused when his sword disappeared. She realized she had fallen into his trap. Jimmy countered her attack and defeated Iris. She was shocked that Jimmy had been playing with her the whole time. The King of Midgar was disappointed in his daughter, and Percy couldn't believe that Iris was defeated. Beatrix was impressed by Jimmy and wanted to fight him too. Suddenly, Rose appeared in the room, and Percy smiled because everything was going according to his plan. Rose apologized for her mistakes and told him she would continue to make them. Suddenly, her father replied that he would forgive Rose for all her sins. Rose was happy that her father regained his senses briefly and then murdered him. Before the king of Oriana died, he said that he loved his daughter. Following this, Rose decided to end her life, but Jimmy showed up to save her. He defeated all the assassins, and Rose realized that Jimmy was the hero who had saved her in her childhood. He transformed into Shadow, but Rose called him Stylish Bandit Slayer. Rose messed up his performance, and they didn't know who the Stylish Bandit Slayer was. She admired him and remembered the day she was kidnapped by bandits. On that day, a hero showed up, and she'd introduced himself as Stylish Bandit Slayer. He said that her fight was not over, and she decided to survive to save her kingdom. Out of the shadows, Percy tried to call for guard reinforcements, but the Shadow Garden members eliminated them. Suddenly, Shadow was attacked by Beatrix because she really wanted to fight him. Iris was shocked that the person who defeated her in the match was Shadow. He destroyed the building and began fighting Beatrix on the roof. Then we see the King of Migger, who was reported that there was a fight in the arena. Additionally, it was reported that Percy was on his way to the kingdom of Oriana and Claire was looking for her little brother. Meanwhile, Shadow withstood Beatrix's attacks and planned to show her a secret technique of his. Beatrix was able to block his attack, and he smiled. He constantly appeared out of nowhere behind her, and she couldn't predict his attacks. Shadow told her that he respected her and said she was a strong opponent. Suddenly, Iris appeared, planning to fight Shadow with a legendary artifact. Shadow said that she couldn't scratch him with it, and Iris attacked him with a sword in anger. Unfortunately, she couldn't hit him, and he dodged the attacks with ease. Iris couldn't believe that her attack failed and tried to attack him again. He ignored her because he was being attacked by Beatrix. Iris was angry because Shadow looked down on her. Then we see Rose, who managed to escape, and Alpha appeared behind her. Shadow fought against Iris and Beatrix at the same time and only played with the two girls. He also wanted a weapon and let Iris hit him to get his favorite weapon. However, he managed to get two crowbars to fend off the girls' attacks. Shadow planned to show them the true power of crowbars and was excited to launch his attack. He got into position to prepare his attack with the crowbars. Meanwhile, Alpha told Rose that she had the option to fight alone or join Shadow Garden. Rose learned that Shadow Garden could help her save her kingdom, so she decided to join Shadow Garden. Later, Iris asked her opponent who he was, and he replied that Shadow was his true name and form. Beatrix introduced herself and enjoyed the fight against Shadow. Suddenly, Shadow wanted to make a cool appearance and show them another secret technique. Iris was angry at being treated like a weakling and tried to hit him with a fire attack. Unfortunately, Iris was no match for Shadow, and he continued to fight with Beatrix, who managed to destroy one of his crowbars. Then we see Anaros, who was at the train station hoping to see Jimmy again one day. He was on the roof of the building, fighting against Beatrix, who was able to block his attacks. Shadow praised Beatrix and planned to teach her a trick, but Iris attacked him from behind. At that moment, he wondered if both siblings were wild animals and told Iris that he could not be defeated with borrowed power. Iris wanted to defeat him at all costs, but Shadow wasn't impressed. He defeated her immediately and focused on Beatrix's strong attack. Suddenly, he showed the two girls his monstrous strength and stomped them to the ground. Shadow won the fight, but Iris didn't give up and didn't want to let him escape. The reason for this was that she wanted revenge for destroying a city of the Midgar Kingdom, but Shadow just laughed, and they were confused because he was acting strangely. Shadow laughed because he had no intention of running away and activated his nuclear bomb spell. Suddenly, he was in the sky and said that playtime was over. Alexia trained her sword skills and wanted to become just as strong as Shadow. Following this, Iris lost her will to fight because she understood that no one could stop Shadow. He demonstrated the power of a god and activated his atomic bomb spell. At the last moment, he stopped his spell and the barrier disappeared. Iris realized that Shadow had disappeared too, and Beatrix admired him. Iris cried because she lost to him and could never beat him. A few days later, we see Cherry, who wanted revenge on Shadow for killing her father. Percy apologized because he let Rose escape, and a core member of the Diablos cult was disappointed in him. Beatrix tried to cheer Iris up, but Iris said everything was fine. She left the capital without finding her niece, but was happy to have met Sheed. After this, we see the core members of Shadow Garden, who continue to admire their master. They thought that Shadow knew the Oriana Kingdom was controlled by the cult. Meanwhile, She was on his way to school and found out that Hiro had a long-term job because he had to pay off debts. He also learned that Hiro had been nicknamed the Demon Shadow since his last fight. We then see Rose, who arrived in Sheed's hometown. Alpha told her that they had to cross the mountains and went to a secret place. At night, they arrived in a town used for training Shadow Garden's newbies. Rose learned that her name would be number 666 and that she would have to forget her old life. She was sad and didn't want to forget the memories of her past. Meanwhile, she was dressed as Shadow and played the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the vast realms of anime. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned for more thrilling reviews and discussions. Until next time, keep exploring the boundless wonders of anime with us.